All right, so President Obama wants China to let its currency appreciate, and Chinese President Hu Jintao wants the U.S. to really reject trade sanctions against his country. What are the chances that these two giant economic superpowers will make progress on either or both of these issues? Well, joining us right now is Stuart Eizenstat, a former undersecretary at the U.S. State Department and deputy secretary at the Treasury Department. He's now a partner at Covington and Burling and joins us now from Washington. Stu, great to have you back with us. So what are the chances that these two nations really can bridge the divides on so many different issues?
Let's start with the proposition that the president's visit with President Hu indicates that this is going to be the single most important bilateral relationship in the 21st century. The superpower, the United States, and the emerging superpower, China. And I think that the fact that the president directly raised in front of the world cameras and in front of President Hu the need for China to appreciate its currency and to remove this fixed peg that keeps their currency artificially low and therefore their exports artificially low is tremendously important. And I think it's going to be successful for the following reasons. First, the president raised it directly and President Hu did not contradict it. Second, at the APEC conference, the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Conference, just a couple of days ago, there was a statement in there about the need for all countries to move to a market-based currency, and China is one of those members and didn't object. Third, it's not just President Obama. A number of Asian central banks in the last few days have had to intervene to keep their currencies weak so that they're not at a further disadvantage with China. And the old relationship, what I call a Siamese twin relationship between the U.S. and China, in which we took their products and they bought our debt, has really collapsed as a result of the economic crisis. We can't keep spending more than our income, and they can't keep fixing their currency. And I think this protectionism, which President Hu mentioned, the ultimate protectionism is their low currency. We're going to see more trade frictions, more trade actions against China, as long as they have this artificially low currency, and therefore the trade deficit with them grows. So I'm optimistic that all these forces are converging on China and that they will now appreciate their currency.
Let's just, to get that straight, Stu, and you have so much experience with China. I mean, when President Hu says that China and the U.S. need to oppose and reject protectionism in all its manifestations, is he talking about the currency? I mean, clearly that's one of the strongest manifestations of protectionism today.
Well, for sure, he wasn't pointing the finger at himself. He was pointing at the increased number of trade actions which the U.S. has taken. There are a whole range of anti-dumping actions. There was the tire case. There's steel pipe. There's salt phosphate. There are a whole range of these. What President Obama can basically offer to President Hu is that if you want to eliminate these kinds of protectionist measures you're talking about, then you've got to allow your currency to appreciate perhaps as much as 20 or 25% over this year, and then ultimately go to a market-based system, because that's the ultimate protectionism. So I certainly don't think that President Hu was pointing the finger at himself as he was pointing at the U.S., but the very words he used can be turned against him, because the ultimate protectionism is in a situation where the world's second leading power is in effect protecting its own exports by artificially keeping them low. That's not sustainable. Asian countries are recognizing that. The United States is recognizing, and Strauss-Kahn, the head of the IMF in Beijing, supported what President Obama was saying.
Stu, let me ask you, though, maybe this is very simplistic, but I mean, how much of an economic threat truly is China?
Well, they are ultimately a partner of ours, because without Chinese-American partnership, we can't get out of this global economic turndown. And they are showing, I think, in some respects, a very positive attitude. For example, well before the Europeans did, and in fact in greater amounts than the Europeans did, they stimulated their economy, and that has helped put a floor under the decline in the global economy. In the statement today, they've indicated that they will spur their domestic demand, and that's exactly what we need to correct the imbalance between the relationships. So they're being more constructive, but this is the final step that they need to take. They're now not a poor country. They don't need to protect their exports. They're a world power. So I think that we're headed in the right direction.
Stu,
but it's going to take
let me just jump in for a second. A lot more work, no doubt about that. I mean, do you think the Chinese officials understand that we can prosper together and it's in both of our interests to kind of work towards that goal? And we just got about 30 seconds here.
The answer is yes, and another evidence of that is that their central bank, in their typical statement about their own currency, their RMB, dropped a statement about keeping essential stability and talked more about taking into account general market conditions. So I think that things are moving in the right direction. They realize that we're in this together and that this Siamese twin relationship has to change in a more fundamental way, and that we are the two major drivers of the world economy.
Okay.
If we're weak in the United States, it hurts them. I think they do get it.
All right, we're going to leave it on that note. Stuart, thanks so much. Stuart Eizenstat, former State Department and Treasury official in the Clinton administration.